Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 113 of the Watch Rolling Podcast. The Watch Rolling Podcast is a veteran-owned podcast that focuses on horology while sharing valuable resources with the watch enthusiast community. My name is Jason. I'm your host. If you're new to the pod, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Episode 113 is an awesome conversation with Lucy from the Watch Box Diaries. You can find her on YouTube and Instagram. Lucy is a pretty cool watch enthusiast and a content creator with over 200 videos on her channel. We discuss the importance of women in the watch enthusiast space in collecting, her diverse background in collecting. We touch on some vintage stuff, which I think is pretty important because I'm kind of scared of vintage. And then we also discuss the importance of smaller brands on top of a bunch of everything else. So I invite you to sit down, get a frosty drink or whatever you want, and however you enjoy a video, and listen to this wonderful conversation with Lucy from the Watch Box Diaries. Hello, Lucy, and welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Oh yeah, excited to have you too. It's nice. It's always nice to have a fun watch chat first thing in the morning. And I appreciate you coming in the middle of your day. For those of you who don't know, it's early morning here on the East Coast, and then over in England where Sophie is, it's probably nice around lunchtime. So it's going to be a nice way to start the day off for both of us, I think. But without further ado, Lucy, let's tell us a little bit about yourself and your watch background.
So I am Lucy, also known as the Watch Box Diaries. I feel like every time I say that, I have to do like my little intro, bring my hands up. So many people have, like, when they've met me in person, they do it when they when they say hello to me. So I guess that's become like a little bit of my identity now. Yeah, as a female watch enthusiast, I have jumped down the rabbit hole with my Instagram and YouTube channels. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love your channel too because it's a wide variety of stuff, and I appreciate how there's not, we talked about patterns earlier. I couldn't really notice a pattern in the watches that you review or look at. There's a lot of different styles and movements and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool because you get a well-rounded kind of understanding of what you kind of dig and then what you don't dig. And I think that's pretty good because that's what I look for when I go to a channel that has reviews or where they just talk about watches. It's like, are they talking about the same kind of watches all the time? Because eventually I stopped watching, but when they have different watches and I can actually see something, because your video quality is really good. And the way I think that you explain with some additional context and what you like and what you don't like about the watches kind of brings me back. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't really consider that. I appreciate that. But without further ado, let's get into the wrist check. I'll go first because I'd like to let my guests talk about their watches as a guest of honor. But on my wrist, because I don't want to forget it, because I always forget it. But on my wrist, I have my 16570 Explorer 2 Polar.
I love the Polar. I really do. That and the Explorer, I think, are the two of the most perfect boring watches. But I mean that in the best way.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I went back and forth between the two, and I have a bigger wrist. I have a 7 5/8 inch wrist, so I think in centimeters that's 19.05. It's not small. I'm not a small guy. I'm like 6'2". Like I don't know how many stones, but I'm like 250 pounds. I've been that size since like high school, right? And so I went with the polar dial versus the black dial because to my eyes the polar dial looks a little bit bigger. It just gives more of a presence on the wrist, but it just wears like a dream. I mean, I could wear this thing with anything. I mean, it's so dialed in, and I've been going back and forth because I've had this for about 5 to 6 months, and I've always liked the 216570, the next version, which is the 42 millimeter with the floating hands. So I'm kind of torn, like, do I go up with a little bit bigger size with some more modern things if I'm going to keep it forever? And, but it's beautiful. And you're right, it is boring.
When they have so many variations of almost the same thing, like how do you pick between them?
Oh yeah. No, like Omega, I don't know how people do it. Like there's a 14.4 billion SKUs for Omegas. Like, you want a Speedmaster?
God. I reviewed the Ploprof and I literally had a post-it note with the reference number on it to for my review because of how long it is. I love the Ploprof. Absolutely obsessed with it. It's so ridiculous. I'm never going to need that like amount of water depth rating, but it's such a cool watch.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things, like if you got into some weird situation like in an action movie where you needed something to help you like break out of a window, or I don't know. That thing's gonna like, you could stand on it if you need an extra inch. It's
I
crazy.
got to review the last full steel one that they produced.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing weighed a ton, like that. You were walking
Yeah.
around with an absolute weapon on your wrist. So yeah, I can imagine that being absolutely fine breaking glass.
Yeah, they're so. I've had tons of buddies that have owned them at one point or another, and I've considered it just to have for like a summer, just to my big watch summer or something like that. But I don't know, I have to give it a second thought. I don't know, but they're very very cool, and there's like tons of iterations of them. That's the crazy part. I mean, for something
Yeah,
so unique, Omega really does just like bang out colorways or slightly, because I think there's a titanium version if I remember correctly.
there is. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's interesting stuff. But what do you have on your wrist, Lucy?
I've actually gone in the Rolex direction myself as well. Normally, people kind of expect me to be wearing my Grand Seiko because
Yeah.
she is my baby. And as much as you probably shouldn't ever say that you have a favorite child, she's kind of my favorite child. But this is my second favorite baby. So this is just my Rolex.
Oh, nice.
It is not an Explorer, but it does have a 369 dial on it. The Oyster Perpetual is like I guess it's similar to yours. It is a
Mm,
pretty perfect, boring watch.
yeah.
It's not, I didn't want anything flashy. I didn't want anything, too in your face, but this just really spoke to me. It's super simple and it has a lot
Yeah.
of meaning behind it.
Oh,
There's
nice.
like a family connection to it. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
So my Grand Seiko is the same way. I have an SBGA 231,
Ah,
so the titanium diver,
yeah.
and so I had owned previously an SBGX 335, which was the 9F6 diver, and my wife's favorite color is yellow, so that had yellow little highlights and
Ah,
indices in there. So I got that. That was my first luxury watch, I would say, quote unquote. And so much so I paid Brian Brady to do a bad art, nice watch. It's back there. I don't know if you can see in the thing. It's this little one. Shout out Brian. But I told my wife I'd only ever get rid of that watch if I moved up to the 231 or the 436 or 463 because they have the gold GS.
how do you guys remember all of these reference numbers?
It's a problem. And I'll be honest with you, like once they get to like 5 numbers, I start to have problems. So
Okay.
like because I know it's 16570 for this Rolex,
Yeah.
but sometimes I catch myself saying 15670. And I think I might have like, and I don't even mean funny, like this math. When I was a little kid, and here's a story you didn't need to know. When I was a little kid, math would make me mad. I knew what the answer was, but trying to do the work, it made me mad. Like I would get physically angry. I'm like, I wish math was a person so I could punch it in the face. And so I think around 5, I just happen to lock them in. But it becomes easier the more I own and live with the watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've been fortunate enough to get some watches in my hand that I have for a while because like there's stuff like Casio, good luck, Citizen, good luck, Omega, good luck, because their numbers can be pretty stinking
Yeah.
long. So yeah, but no, that Grand Seiko, it's and you talk about perfect boring, right? I would even consider my 231 perfect boring until you get it under the loop. I'm pretty sure yours under the loop is magnificent
Oh,
in this
she's
Explorer
yeah.
2. You know, it's and I think that's the cool part. I don't know about you. What do you think? Like when you're alone and you have a second to look at it, you really get to like marvel in.
If I can look at my watch to look at the time, forget to look at the time and get distracted by the dial, I know that is going to be I made the right choice. Like I made a good
Yeah,
choice. And that happens with a lot of my collection, which is really nice. Especially
yeah,
my Grand Seiko. The amount of
yeah,
times I look at that watch and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so in love with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I do actually need to check the time.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. In Grand Seiko, it's sneaky. I mean, there's so much nuance. It's crazy. That's on the bucket list. I want to just go to Japan and go to the factory and like maybe see if I can get a
Incredible.
tour one day. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Well,
that they look out the window and they're just like, okay, that one bird, we're going to create a watch around that one bird that flew across our window because
yeah,
I noticed it and the sun was in the right, how they
yeah,
come up with half of these ideas connecting to nature.
yeah. And isn't it crazy that there's people that complain about that? Like, uh, uh, let's get off track here for a second because this is what we're here
I'm
for.
sorry, I'm really good at that.
No, I'm fine with it. It's isn't it crazy that people are like, oh yeah, it's like, a piece of wheat in a field at the end of Gladiator, and it's like, I mean, but you can people complain about there not being enough stories in watches, and then when a company is giving you two-person artisanship and then captures a moment, people just dismiss it, and it's like, I don't think their watches would be as beautiful as they are if they didn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, some people are interested in the inspiration for it, some people aren't. Some,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, Grand Seiko have so many iterations, and I do mock the, some of their inspiration, literally the
yeah,
birds, or, on this particular day, the snow was lopsided, so we decided to do a dial in it. Some of it is just like, what?
yeah,
How did you see that and then create what you did? But I am also one of these people that love that connection with nature and
yeah,
love to know where that inspiration came from. So if you're not into it, absolutely fine, just ignore it. If you
yeah,
are into it, it's awesome.
yeah. I think I'd love to take pictures, and it's something I fell out of for a long time, and I've just got back into it recently. And my brain kind of works that way. Like I've joked about it. I'll walk to a place to see something at a certain angle, or I want to like lock that memory in. And I think that's kind of cool if there's just dudes at Grand Seiko to get paid, like, hey, walk around the windows and look for something. And they're like, oh yeah, there's this cow in the field over there, and he was eating some grass, and it was like, the sun was setting. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, not buy that watch, but I'd be interested in the story.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Lucy, let us know your origin story. What first got you into collecting watches or just being interested in watches? And then how did that ultimately end up to you documenting your love of watches on YouTube?
So, the watch that I'm currently wearing is part of my origin story. Um, so my stepdad has a vintage date just champagne dial, beat to hell. This thing is the back, the Jubilee bracelet stretched. There's dents in it. It is a very, very well loved watch. But
Mm-hmm.
he let me wear it for a little while because I was like, oh, that's cool. That's, everyone knows Rolex. Even people that aren't
Yeah.
into watches, they kind of know Rolex. So he's like, yeah, feel free to wear it. I've got another one. Like, honestly, don't worry about it. This thing has been on X holiday, here, been through this, been through that. And he's got so many stories that go along with this watch. Um, that's part of why I fell in love with it because I was like, oh, that scratch there came from this holiday that I went on to here, and it was my first time. The stories connected to it. So I wore it, and I was like, absolutely love this. Like, this is cool. I love that it's vintage. Love that it's got so much history to it. And I went down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, Rolex again. Everyone knows. So
Mm-hmm.
what else is there?
Yeah.
You start doing the research, so I'm sure a lot of people listening will have been down that rabbit hole of, especially like eBay watches. When you're first starting out, you don't necessarily have the funds to go out and buy all of the big boy watches. So I started purchasing like little Seikos. Like, I got stung by a couple of like knockoff
Yeah.
Frankenstein watches, but then I took them apart and I was like, oh, okay, so this is actually from here, or this isn't, and then you start breaking down and learning a bit more about the innards of it as well. Then, yeah, tip down the rabbit hole. Um, I ended up moving away and I couldn't take this watch with me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, had to give it back, and I was already completely head over heels in love with it. But it was coming up to my 30th birthday, and sort of as a moving away slash 30th birthday gift, he said to me, this watch, the date just, it's been through a lot. One day it will be yours. I've made memories with it. My hope is that I can pass it down to you, and you can continue
Mm-hmm.
adding memories to it. And honestly, it got very
Yeah.
soppy, and very, very sweet, but he was like, look, it's coming up to a big birthday. I want to obviously want to treat you to something that you're going to cherish and you're going to really love. You love watches, you love this idea. Go out, pick a watch so that you can make memories with it to pass it down to your children.
Yeah.
Um, and this
That's
one on
awesome.
this lovely one on my wrist, this little Oyster Perpetual, was the one that I ended up going with. So yeah, this is, I'll eventually get that watch passed down to
Mm-hmm.
me, and then my children will get me and all of
Yeah.
the memories I create in this watch passed down to them for them to build memories to it. So it's a
That's
very
awesome.
heartfelt connection between the two, and how that connects to sort of the rest of my journey. My other half is also into watches, which is a very dangerous game, by the
Yes,
way,
it is.
because there's no one to say no, and it takes very little justification to make a purchase. But we ended up obviously bonding very much over it. Lockdown occurred. He got
Yeah.
himself a watch Instagram. I thought it was really lame. And then I got really bored and thought, fine, I'll give it a go. I'll start an Instagram. Very quickly realized that the watch community is fantastic. And it was obviously in its prime during lockdown because everyone was at home.
Yeah.
So it was really supportive, but the one thing that I did notice very quickly is that female enthusiasts were such a minority, and actually getting female-based information from content from reviews was barely anything. Obviously you had Jenny L and you pretty much had the lovely 10 and 2 ladies, Kat and Catelyn. And I really resonated with them because to me it was relatable.
Yeah.
So obviously I had my Instagram and that was building up. And my other half was just like, why don't you give it a go? Have a little play around, try it. I think I did a Scottish Watches podcast where I was a guest and I also hosted a couple times as well. They introduced me to two of the lovely ladies, Sam. So we call them UK Sam and US Sam, and I was not Sam. And we had a little YouTube channel, a little YouTube show once a week, which we called Time of the Week, which
Nice.
caused a little bit of a stir.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved doing that. So between that and then my other half going, look, why don't you just maybe create a platform, try it out, see how you get on. You've obviously got all these thoughts and it's a bit more relatable. There's not many female content creators out there. Give it a go.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up starting over the 60-second reviews. So yeah, that's my journey.
That's awesome. No, and I think it's important because there's so much to go back to your heirloom piece, right? So there's a tactile thing involved, right? Because it's we joked about Gladiator, the movie Gladiator earlier, but at the end of the scene when he has the little statues of his wife and his child, and he buries them in the dirt, and he walks away, right? These little things that can embody these moments in time that we remember them, but we know we'll never get those moments in time again.
Yeah.
I think there's a real thing there for tactility in that, and maybe it's just me being retired military, but there's a thing, you know what I mean, like handling the thing and bringing the thing, and
Yeah.
it's part of your kit, whatever you want to call it, right? It's like maybe you got a big day, big interview or something, and you bring that with you, and it's like, yeah, I think that's important. And then to go back to the representation within the community, right? That's a huge thing because it goes back to I bring it back to tactile stuff again, where it's like, my wife's got a super small wrist. She's got like a 6-inch wrist, right? And so having avenues for her to be able to go find out, hey, what strap companies make small straps? Which ones make small bracelets that you can size to small? And it sounds ridiculous, but every time she gets a nice watch, there's times where I'm like, babe, I can't take out any more links. Like, I don't know you know what I mean? Like, and I feel
Yeah.
bad for her, So having avenues and resources for people to go to for these things that I think are much deeper and actually contextually useful than people realize. It's not just about having a specific face in front of it. No, it's like there's real stuff that goes along with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, engineering and everything else. But I think that's pretty cool. And shout out to being on Scottish Watches, and also shout out to 10 and 2 because I missed that podcast. I thought that was pretty
Same.
good. There's nice chemistry there. I understand they're busy and everything, but it was a great podcast. But so, Lucy, how has your relationship with watches changed since you started your channel?
I know a lot more than I thought I ever did. You think, oh, because there's so many people out there that know a crazy amount of stuff about watches. But looking back at when I first started to now, I have a much more wide knowledge of watches. So I'm quite proud of that. And like obviously my knowledge within the industry has developed. I have such an appreciation for everything around watches. So when I do my research for my videos, obviously I learn a lot more about the companies and about the watches and about the pieces and where they come from, how long it takes to produce a video. I honestly, major shout out to people that
Yes.
do YouTube videos, do podcasts, and there's so much more work involved than people realize. And absolute kudos to them for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and I think I have a much more, yeah, I'm a lot more passionate about smaller brands now. I think
Okay.
seeing you get, the more into the industry you get, the more brands you learn about. You have you have your top ones, which people tend to learn about first, I
Mm.
guess. But because my channel is so varied in terms of what I do review, I have such a wide variety of brands now that I'm aware of. So the smaller brands tend to be so much more passionate about
Yeah.
it. Like these are passion projects for people. So
Yeah.
I have such a huge appreciation for, yeah, for the smaller brands, I think,
Yeah.
now.
And there's a lot of stuff they have to juggle too. Like it, because I've had conversations with some brand people, and there's a concern about growth, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to grow too fast because we don't have the infrastructure to support that growth. And then even brands like Christopher Ward, who kind of blew up. I mean, everyone knew who they were, but they blew up over the last couple of years, and they got to get their customer service up to snuff to match that
Yeah.
growth, right? It's real concern. So if you're 10 times smaller than that, and you have this a wonderful design that everyone's jamming with, and then like, what if you don't have the infrastructure to support your growth? That's a real thing. That's a real concern. And then your passion could probably get snuffed out a little bit because now it's becoming like a real thing. It's a first world problem, but still it's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's something you have to work out and figure out for
Yeah.
yourself as a brand. No, and I totally agree. Have you had, so over, because I did my count and I stopped counting, 200 videos on YouTube, which is no small feat. I want to add. I mean, that's a lot because I have like 150, but I don't, mine are kind of hodgepodge all over the place. But anyways, 200 videos of real video content, because I could, after doing my own videos, I can tell like what's being edited and what's being added, and like script work and thumbnails. Like, there's a lot of stuff there. And have you what have you ran across that really surprised you watch wise? What timepiece or brand like surprised the heck out of you in a good way?
God, I've covered quite a few along the
Yeah.
way. Um, there's a watch that I thought was okay, and then actually got hands-on review with it. And to be fair, I did completely fall in love with it. And if I didn't have this, I would be purchasing it. And now for me, Longines,
Oh yeah.
I appreciate them as a brand, but do you know when you just haven't found one of their pieces that you really connect with?
I know exactly what you mean.
And I tried their Spirit 36, I think it was, because the lugs on Longines are always way too big. And as a smaller wrist person, it just did not sit right at all. I'm like, I want to love this brand. I want to like them. Their bronze diver, loved it. Would never fit me properly. I was so pleasantly surprised with the Longines Spirit. I still talk about it now, and this was obviously
Mm,
years later. So that's one of the ones.
yeah.
And don't want to keep mentioning Crystal Wall because I obviously realise I do a few videos on them. I'm a bit of a fangirl now because watching their development from, I got hands on with some of their earlier pieces and
Hmm.
obviously now up to where they are now. Not so much one particular one, but their growth and development in their aesthetics, I
Yeah.
think I have a big appreciation for.
Yeah. And they're dialing in this, and I'm not going to say any particular size, but they're dialing in the size, right?
Yeah,
Like, everything I've tried recently sits well, wears well, is comfortable. There's a lot. They must be doing their homework, right? I mean,
yeah,
obviously. And so, yeah, no, I agree. And I feel the same way. Like how you feel about Longines, I feel the same way about Zen. I've been
yeah,
through a million Zens, and I've loved them all, but not enough to keep them. And I
yeah.
think there's one I've handled that I know I'd want the modern iteration of, the 903, which is their Navi timer. So I kind of avoid that one on purpose, because I think if I ever did get one on wrist for real, I'd probably just buy it. And that's
Zane,
the
if
last thing I
you're
need.
listening,
Yeah, yeah,
you got a sale there.
man. Zen, they make some good stuff, but I know what you mean. So when it comes to your storytelling part, because I think you do a pretty good job of storytelling in your videos,
Thank you.
along with the watch focus content, is it a purposeful balance in it, or does it just come naturally for you?
It's half purposeful and then kind of just a natural verbal outlet for it. So there's structures to the video, and it's kind of what I would want to know about a watch. So the way that I structure it, I kind of like to make sure that there's like an introduction to the brand, especially if they're maybe an unknown brand, or people may not have come across it, or there are facts in there that people may not be aware of. So there's a little bit of a backstory to the brand, a little bit of knowledge. Specifications, like people can go out and look at specifications. So I don't tend to go too in depth, but for me personally, I like to at least have a quick rundown of them in my videos, just so I know what I'm working with. And then the likes and dislikes, I like to try and keep balanced
Mm-hmm.
with my videos as a personal preference. Like as I mentioned, you can go out and you can look at the specifications of a watch. I'm not going to go super in depth. There are other people in there that are going to go maybe into like hairsprings and balance wheels. And that's that's just not me. So I like to make sure that there's a little element of personality in there. There's relatability in there
Yeah.
and genuine, honest, like this is what I like about it. This is maybe like a gripe of mine in there. And it's fair and real and hopefully trustworthy.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's because I've watched quite a few. I always do my homework before I interview people, and some people I've watched their videos for a while, and I, I always feel like with yours, it's less being talked to and more of being talked with, right? And those are my favorite channels, because in real life, I don't like anyone talking to me. Like I'm gonna be honest about it. Like don't come at me that way, but it's more of a conversation. It's like hey, if you're interested in this, it's like for your consideration.
Yeah.
And I always feel those are the best kind of channels where it's like, hey, look, I'm just tossing it out there if you want it, because it's like you talked earlier about, how do you remember all those reference numbers? But there's so much stuff with watches. There's so much stuff. Like nobody knows every single watch ever made, nor what goes on inside. And so like the specifications part is cool with me, and I like a short rundown, but I also think it's cool you show it on your wrist, because I think that's like one of the most helpful things, right? Like if people are following your channel and they know that this person's got X size wrist,
Yep.
and now they're watching these watches, and then they're like, oh, because like you said earlier, it didn't fit well for you, but that's your definition of literal fit. You don't go around saying that watch is too big for people. You're just saying this watch didn't fit me,
Yep.
right? And then you're able to explain that, because I think that's because I've had people, newer watch enthusiasts, tell me, oh, I can't wear that because it's too big. I'm like, well, what do you mean too big? They're like, well, it's too big. And all the channels are saying it's like too big for them. I'm like, no, man, if you want to wear that, wear it. It can literally be too heavy. Like if your arm's hanging down by your ankle when you're walking around, probably too heavy. I'm like, but if you can't get through your door of your house, probably too big for
Yeah.
that, but it can't be too big for you to wear. So I think that's pretty cool.
Everything is personal preference. And I
Yes.
like to try and represent, the smaller wristed community out there and show what it's like in an everyday situation. It's great having the renders or the pictures online or looking at a review that's physically hands on. In day-to-day life, what are the things that you would notice about it? How does it actually wear on a wrist that's around about my size? What are the things that on a day-to-day basis you would actually notice rather than just holding it in a shop or
Yeah.
having a little look at online? Like bringing that into the real life is kind of what I try and I make sure I show.
Yeah. No, and I think it's cool too, because you also get to see like, a person's personal style,
Yeah.
right? So, it's like I don't think most people, I mean, I'm sure there are YouTube channels where people get dressed up specifically for that video, but all the people I know that do it as like a side thing, they're wearing the clothes they wear every day. They're just putting on, clean, a fresh version for the show, right? But that's what they're wearing out in town, right? So like I am this boring dude. I wear black V-necks like socially, and like I would wear shorts every day if I could. But I have like the same like Columbia shorts. I buy like when I find something I like, I buy like 15 of them, and I don't got to worry about it, right?
In every color.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I got like light gray, like a slate gray, and then I got like a dark gray, and that's it. I'm very monotone, and the reason why is just because I don't want to have to think about it, right? But so if I did watch reviews, you'd be like, man, this guy wears the same thing every time. But I guarantee you, there'd be people that are like that. They're like, yeah, this dude wears the same thing time. I wear the same stuff all the time.
Yep.
and that's how the watches work. But I think it's cool because when people show their personal style on the videos with the review, someone's style may be similar to
Yeah.
yours, and they're like, hey, that would be cool, I could kind of pair that watch with this, because there are people that do that. Like, they have enough watches to where there's a watch with outfit, I guess, yeah, see. And so,
Hand is raised right now.
yeah,
Yep.
you know what
Guilty
I
as
mean.
charged.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I think that's cool too, because it's because I think that people really pick up on more in the videos than even us content creators realize.
Yeah.
And they could be coming to watch your stuff for a variety of reasons. So I think the more you give them and the more you balance it out, the better return on investment it is for your time in creating the stuff, and draws in an audience. So
I mean, one of the huge bonuses of being an enthusiast for so many years ahead of making content is I've got an idea of like what I like or what other people like to see from videos. Obviously, you have to make sure that it's all personal to you as well, but it's, if people I like okay, I like thinking, how could I wear that? How could I style that particular watch? What straps would actually look good on? And sometimes you don't think about it, but seeing a video of someone wearing it in a specific way, or you're wearing it on a specific
yeah,
strap that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of. I like seeing that. So I'm like, well, maybe there's someone out there that might actually like seeing that as well. So
yeah,
I'll put that out there.
yeah. No, it's pretty cool, especially the strap thing. Strap thing's like, man, I tell you what, because we just had a conversation in one of my groups, and I guess I don't know if you're familiar with Cincy Watch Strap Company. They make pretty decent North American. The word you can't use or you're gonna get hit. So, anyways,
Uh,
certain kind of nylon strap, and
I think they're called nylon straps now.
yeah, yeah, and they went out of business, and they're a favorite strap company of a bunch of us in the group, because for those with a bigger wrist, they make slightly longer versions of that strap, and they were thin and they were comfortable, and they didn't get super stretched out over time, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes like the holes get stretched out, and the thing just, no one wants a loose strap like that. But they went out of business. You're like, oh man, it kind of stinks, because people would show them in their videos, and then they would give some context about how they wore, and everybody was happy. So
yeah.
it's kind of crazy. So going around, we talked about community earlier, Lucy. So has there been anything that's in a positive way or in a negative way that surprised you the most about the community that's grown around your channel specifically?
I mostly get positive feedback, which is great because obviously I'm friends with quite a few other content creators who, by the way, are incredibly supportive. The community, the majority of content creators that I ever spoken to, so super supportive. I don't know whether I've just been lucky with the people that, that I've connected with, but I haven't experienced some of the things that they have. So I do consider myself very lucky with that, with the positive sort of feedback from my reviews. It's being meeting these people in person that like surprised me the most. I was in LA early this year.
Yeah, saw that.
Bearing in mind I'm just a little British content creator and going to a show all the way out in LA and people coming up to me and doing the whole hi Lucy, the Watch Box Diaries, like we really love your show. Like my girlfriend, my wife watches it and she really loves your channel. She saw it that I was watching one of your videos, she saw it, loved it. I bought this watch. These little stories and the connections that I make and people actually recognizing me, it still feels so surreal
Yeah,
to do that. But I I love hearing those stories. Like absolutely love it. So if anyone has like learned anything at all from my videos, even if it's one person and I've helped, educate them some way or, convince them, or shown them different ways to buy a watch and stuff, please tell me because like literally just makes my heart so full.
yeah. Leave it in the comments, and I'll put obviously the link to your channel and stuff in the show notes, because that's an interesting thing that's happened to me too. Is like I go to events and people say hi to me, and I'm like, dude, like, because I know my viewership. Like, I don't pretend that I've got like this. You know, I would say a hardcore group of certain amount of number that watch and listen. And then, but other people come up to me and like, oh man, I love your stuff, blah, 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 blah. I love your interviews. And I'm like, oh, but so the people that have provided you, help and support, or is there anybody in particular you like to thank? Because I believe in using platforms like this to help, shout out other people. no harm to my channel. But if there's anyone you want to say thank you to, by all means, feel free to if you want to.
I obviously want to shout out my girls who I have a little, we call ourselves like the spicy potato girls,
Nice.
like the Spice Girls,
Yeah.
but we're not quite as glamorous, so we do call each other potatoes. And you'll see them on my live, my lives that I do on YouTube, and you'll see them sort of on my content. And they're just the sweetest girls. They are so, so incredibly supportive. If you're having a bad day and everyone has them, they're like, it's fine. They're very, they're supportive. They're like, what can we do to help? Like, you're doing amazing. And yeah, it's just, yeah, they're my girls. And I
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
shout
Shout out to the
shout out to
girls.
them. Shout out to the girls. Yeah, you'll see them on my YouTube channel, but
No, yeah, definitely the lives you do are pretty engaging. And the hard thing with lives is just finding the right time to do them. It's
yeah,
just, you know what I mean? Like there's never a right time for everybody to be there. And
it's
then there's never a right time to get, viewership all there at the same time. But I think it's that's like super beneficial, the lives, if people can catch them,
yeah.
because you get like the real honest opinions come out about
It's
certain
not
things.
it's not really scripted.
Yeah.
We have I make sure I have like a little agenda, but as with maybe a lot of my YouTube videos, like everything else is kind of off the cuff. We tangent all the time, and it's a lot more real than slightly more structured
Yeah.
videos. So with lives, my own and other people's, like you do, as you said, like get a real good glimpse into how those people are in person.
Yeah. No, and it's difficult because I've been on some lives, and once you start to get past, like, I think 3 people usually is like the max, where people aren't talking over each other, et cetera, et cetera. And then, but the more people you involve, like, so I've watched a couple of yours, and your group seems to be pretty locked in. They show up, they're ready to talk, they're ready to have a good time. And I think the recording part's like ancillary to that. It's like secondary. Like you're not so concerned with the recording. They're just concerned with getting together and shooting the stuff, right?
Pretty
Which
much.
is which is the best kind of live stream, in my opinion. I've been involved with some before, tons of them, and it's like, or I've talked to people who've done them where people, there's a plan, and then some people show up not prepared. They haven't read anything. They're dogs in the background going crazy, all these crazy stuff. And so yours, for a fun conversation, your live stream, your group, pass on my thanks. They're pretty polished for an unscripted live stream.
As
Pretty
I
good.
said, like my girls are very supportive. We're messaging throughout the day, and there's like, okay, well, what are the main questions? Is there anything else I need to prepare for it? They're making sure that it will run as smoothly as possible in terms of the prep work. And then we know we have great chemistry when we're chatting away, so they're supportive with all the prep, and then they make sure they show up. So yeah, make sure you're
Awesome.
prepared.
Yeah, yeah. No, man, I'll tell you what, it's rough, and that's why I appreciate good guests like you. I just had Sophie on last episode, and she really, I've had tons of really good guests, if I'm being honest, but the good guests really make this job that I do so much easier. It's just like, I just ask questions and they go, and I let them go, and then it's just awesome. It's like interviewing people's fun, but like hearing them, half the time I'm just listening to you guys talk. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to ask another question here in a second. So, you know what I mean? Like want to, but it's just fun to learn about people. So you talked about some cool interactions you've had with people. So I think whether we like to admit it or not, all of us that have a platform, quote unquote, we have a role. So do you see yourself more as like a reviewer, as an educator, or a community builder, or a little bit of all those things rolled into one, or something I didn't consider?
I would like to think I'm a little bit of all of them. In terms of the reviewing side, I do review the watches. I look at them, I create the specifications, I point out things that I like and dislike. So there's a genuine review of the piece itself. Education wise, I'm hopefully teaching people a little bit more about either a new brand, a new complication, a new way of wearing something, looking at a watch in a way that maybe they didn't before, or confirming something they maybe already thought. So, in terms of like the educational side, my channel isn't necessarily, as I said, hardcore knowledge, unless it's a super, super complicated piece. I don't tend to go into the nitty-gritty of, how was this particular sword hand created and what pigment of loom did they use and how did they get this particular balance.
Yeah.
You know, that's it's kind of not what I'm about, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's enough variety that's accessible to people. Because one of the things that I found when I first started out into watches and trying to get into watches is there was so much information out there. You were kind of overwhelmed. You're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm a beginner here and everything is just so hardcore intense.
Yeah.
I lent more towards the 10 and 2 because it was relatable. It wasn't super in depth, but I got the information that I wanted. I was educated by the end of it. So I like to make sure that I'm relatable to a lot of people. There might be some people that watch my videos and go, I knew all of this, but the
Yeah.
likes and great, some of them they might not have known about. So there's still a level of, education within that. But yeah, and then with the community, again, going back to the relatability of it, put my teeth back in. I didn't know there were so many people that were at the level that I was at. And it can be so overwhelming with content. So people coming up to me and going, thank you for providing a much easier to understand and review of this watch because there's so much information out there and it was very simplistically produced and it was relatable. So in terms of the community, hopefully I'm bringing more women in and making them feel more comfortable in the community and just providing a bit more of a level platform and yeah, repping the female
Yeah.
industry.
No, I think you have a point there because I mean I've only really been into watches since like 2019. I've always known about watches, but like
Yeah.
when I went down, that was the day I jumped in the rabbit hole. Was 2019. I was just like, I just did a full pike and dove in, right? But I have noticed way more women, content creators and various platforms, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or blogs, just way more, or maybe there's way more visible now. But I've noticed it, and I think that's a good thing. I think anytime you have more opinions I can get, the better, because I'm I have a whole episode, and I forget episode numbers, but where I basically discuss how you know what you get from the whole watch community is how you look at it, and I go into everything trying to glean information to get smarter. That's it. So I'll never watch a video where I'm like, that's a stupid. I mean, I guess if it was like, here's a watch on a turtle, I mean, maybe that would be stupid, but maybe someone likes watches on turtles. I don't know. So for me, it's like I go into each one of them trying to learn something. I'm looking for something to learn, right? And if I get a little bit of that, then the return on time for me is the time investment is worth it. And I think that's important. You mentioned something earlier about being overwhelmed as a new person. So if you had, this is a shotgun question. If you had one piece of advice for a new enthusiast, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out to people. If you feel like when you're starting out, there are no stupid questions. Genuinely, when you're first starting out, there are no stupid questions. And the majority of content creators out there love being asked
Yeah.
questions that they've been thought worthy of those questions to
Yeah.
be asked. Like just reach out and ask them. Don't fear feeling stupid
Yeah.
because we all started somewhere.
Yeah. And there's literally, I always refer, it's in my car. I keep it in my car. But I have this book by Louis Nardin called The Magic of Watches, and it's on my website and stuff. But I tell people, like, if you want to, it's the one thing when people ask me questions, because there's always like a bunch of them. I'm like, hey man, $35. This is the best little book you're ever going to get. It's like an esoteric technical manual. It is an amazing book. You can carry it with you wherever you go, and that's become my thing. Where people are like, I know that Jason will know about a book or something, right? Because I'm a book guy, I love to read. But it is cool because someone turned me onto that book early on because I wasn't afraid to ask the question. Like, hey, do you got anything to read on this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and it does feel kind of cool. And it happens to me at work all the time now. I'm the watch guy at work, man.
Yeah.
And so people come to me all this stuff, and I'm like, well, give me like 5 minutes and I'll get back to you in about a half an hour, right? And they're like, okay, cool. And then we help people out. But yeah, that is pretty funny. So overall industry, right? We all have our likes and dislikes. Shout out to my boy Simon. He has a channel where he calls it Pants and Pucka. That's what he calls it. Yeah, Simon, Watch the Time. Great channel, man. Simon's a great guy. But anyways, which trends in the watch industry excite you the most right now, or do you see one like cresting the horizon that you're excited about?
I'm still riding and I'm still very, very much enjoying this vintage revival that has been steadily creeping up, I think, the last few years. I think maybe Piaget has set it off
Mm.
with the stone dial, going back to all of them. Vacheron with the 222 bringing back their old school stock. I'm still waiting for Rolex to bring back the bubble back. I was kind of hoping for that this year, but they'll never do what you actually want them to do. But vintage for me is how I started, and I'm always going to be a vintage girl at heart. I love
Yeah,
I love the characteristics of them, and yeah, beautiful. And the stone dials, I'm still loving them. The new
yeah,
Denison watches,
yeah. Didn't one of your buddies just picked one up recently, didn't they? I think I saw on Instagram. The Francis and Gay watches.
yeah, sorry, one of my
Because
girls.
I saw an NWA, and I think it was her. It was like a brown
The Tiger's Eye.
tiger's eye. Yep, yep.
I
Pretty
love them.
snazzy.
I absolutely love them. They've been very, very smart with their design choices. They've been very smart with bringing Emmanuel, is it? Yeah, Emmanuel, the designer, into the company. He's an absolute genius. And the amount of variety and at a price range which is objectively
Yeah,
affordable,
yeah. I know what you mean.
you know, I think they've been very, very smart with it. And also, yeah, I'm digging the stone dials and the non-round case. So yeah, vintage pieces, vintage inspired pieces, revival pieces from different brands, and stone dials for me, I'm still living for.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's who else? Belova makes a couple of stone dial pieces I've been interested in. But I've been paring my collection down. So for me, I'm just living with what I have for now.
Yeah,
I've incorporated. I just speaking of vintage, I just got a vintage Seiko 5 that
love
I
it.
gold plated because I have this Alongapo bracelet. I don't know how familiar you are. They're bracelets that were made in the Philippines for a lot of military members back there, and it started in the Vietnam War. And then you'd have like your insignia of your service on there. You'd have maybe something else, and they're just you know I found a gold plated one. Shout out to my boy Speedy Fit hooked me up, but I've been trying to pair a watch with this thing forever, and I figured I just have to go. I have to go time period. So I got this 1970 Seiko 5, and I also have a Belova Sea King coming in, which is a tonneau case that should be here sometime today. And I'm going to pair each one of these with this totally obnoxious, very niche gold plated bracelet. But if either one of them works, it's going to, nobody will be able to tell me anything about anything when I wear this thing. And, and it's in finding the vintage thing because it's scary. And I think I'd like you to expound on that. Like, as a person who started with vintage, just describe a little bit about the vintage journey, because I've purposely stayed away from it because I feel like I've gotten too far in my depth knowledge of just like general watches to safely play the vintage game. I feel like if I came in on the vintage game, I'd have more contextual knowledge, but I don't. So is there anything, like any advice you want to give for if you come in on vintage or if you're interested in vintage? Because it's a serious thing.
It's another minefield. I feel like it's a completely separate rabbit hole to head down for sure. If you're not sure about it, again, just ask people, do your research into it, whether it's, if you're going to spend quite a lot of money on it, you want to make sure everything's legit. So get the case back. If you're unsure, ask a vintage expert. There are so many people out there that specialize in vintage pieces, and again, they'll be happy to answer your questions. If it's not that expensive and you just like it for the aesthetics and you're not sure whether it's real or not, my personal opinion is just to buy it anyway, because that's how I started down the vintage rabbit hole, and that's how I learned my style and you know
Yeah.
about watches. So again, this is another ask the question.
Yeah.
And if you are going to spend a lot of money, just make sure it's real, because
Yeah.
you can get stung for sure.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like, usually most people go to eBay. So I tell them, like, just learn how to buy on eBay, learn how to buy the buyer, like how many transactions they have. That's highlighted. Are the stars green? Go read the feedback, because they could have 1,000 reviews, but like there might be a
It could be a
hundred
bot.
that are, yeah, you know what I mean? Like and so you just got to kind of figure it out. And then I always go off personal reference. I ask people like, hey, where'd you buy
Yeah.
from? And it's funny because I had a buddy of mine that just asked me about this one company on eBay, or this one company that also has an eBay store. And I was like, man, I've purchased an Omega from them and it was perfectly great. They sent me a additional link, didn't charge me any money. And he's like, oh, great. I probably should shout them out, but I don't like to do that. So as much, I try to tone it down because then people are like, oh, you're trying to, whatever. Anyways, but so it, it's been really fun learning about, your MO and all you've done. And so now that you've gotten to this point, where would you like to take the Watch Box Diaries in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'd like to continue doing what I'm doing because I thoroughly enjoy it. So that would be great. Maybe going to, because this is still a part-time gig for me. I'm very, very lucky in that now I get to do, I'm part of the watch industry 100% of the time now. I have my part-time position with the marketing side of things with Paul in Watches. Big fan of them before I even started working for them. Obviously now I'm slightly biased.
Yeah,
That's why you won't see them featured on my channel because I want to make sure that I'm still very trustworthy and honest in my reviews. So maybe balancing more of the Watchbox Diaries to do this full time would be absolutely fantastic and the absolute dream. And maybe get some merch out there in the
yeah,
next couple of years would be great. Getting to visit facilities, having more access to brands, getting more involved in the community, and maybe, yeah, like helping other people get into watches would be
yeah,
would be great. Yeah. Continue what I'm doing, but just bigger and more often.
yeah. The access thing I've always said is the prime. You need to get the watches in your hands. You really have to get them in your hands in front of you. I mean, there's so much more. You talked about, integrity, about not, reviewing the company you work for. Well, I think there's a certain level of integrity to getting the watch in your hands and talking
Yeah.
about it. But then again, that's not entirely, if someone talks about a watch and can't get it in their hands, it's not entirely their fault they can't get the watch in their hands. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, the access thing is really, really big.
Yeah. There are so many
And if,
online brands now that it is incredibly difficult to get hands on with them. So I think reviews that are hands on and that are honest and have integrity and are trustworthy are so much more important now.
yeah, no, you're right. It makes it easier for me as a person who's into watches trying to figure out. It's like, oh, okay, person's actually got it. So if you could collaborate with any watch brand or a creator, who would it be and why?
See, this is such a tough question because there's so many brands that I love, but I do feel like there is a brand that kind of sums up my style. And I would probably say MB&F.
Oh yeah,
MB&F or de Bethune because they are so creative, so quirky, so unique. Always drawn to them. Absolutely,
yeah,
always, always drawn to them. I love that they take a classic, they take the classic timekeeping. They take watches and they give them such a twist. And that pretty much just sums up my style. Like classic with a twist is kind of what I say
yeah,
about my personal style. And the horological, is it HM9, I think it is.
yeah,
I have a bit of a name that's not
yeah,
necessarily safe for work, my nickname for
yeah,
it. But they take that classic dial that
mm-hmm.
it's, I think it's like a rally car or motorsport dial. And they've just created this like crazy genius alternative way of housing the timepiece. And I
Yeah,
love the creativity. Max Booth is basically just a creative genius, in my opinion. Or Grand Seiko, because, obviously I'm also a Grand Seiko fangirl. Name creators. Like, I absolutely adore Brit. She's such a legend. Like, we've been friends since she started on YouTube. Sorry, on Instagram, all of those years ago. Like, I'm so, so proud of where she's got to with her career. But yeah, like me and Britt together would just be absolutely fantastic. And I think Russ, the Mad Watch Collector.
yeah, it rusts. Yeah,
So I'm I'm actually quite quiet a lot of the time, a little bit more
Yeah.
reserved than, and I get very excited when I go to shows and things. So I can't, I'm just trying to imagine like the crazy chaos that would be me and Russ doing a YouTube video or some form of collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I think those would be my choices.
yeah, I like Brit stuff because it's very matter of fact, and I appreciate matter of fact, right? There's personality, but it's a straight line, right? Like it's just like and gets to the point, and I would say is more succinct than I think people realize. And there's something about brevity that I appreciate. And then Russ, so we I've never met Russ, but we have 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing going on, and the thing I appreciate about Russell is when he's in a live stream though he's able to match the energy of the stream, bring it up when he needs to, and then very much be one of the panel,
Yeah.
right? And I think if you watched his solo videos, you may not think that he would be capable of that, but he is. So it would be cool to see like a it would be funny to see like a scripted video with the two of you where he's like fully like caffeinated and kind of see the balance there. That'd be hilarious. But no, that'd be kind of cool. Okay, so one of my personal questions I used to always ask people, my favorite question would be, do you have a pet peeve? But you actually had videos that were like pet hate videos from a couple years ago. So I just want to see those again because I think that a whole segment around a pet peeve is right up my alley. It's like that's what I mean? Like professional rants, I'm here for it, right? But have you developed any new pet peeves within the watch community since those videos were made? And if so, just give me one.
Yeah, like I think an additional one triggered me and then it made me think about like for this YouTube video that I did. Like one just triggered me and then it made me think of like all the other ones that I had a problem with. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do a YouTube rant about it because I just need to get it out of my system. So that's why I decided on that pet peeve video. But since then, as I've got more hands-on with more watches, downsizing of like I love that watch brands are downsizing some of their pieces to make them more accessible, but they always seem to sacrifice stuff.
Yeah,
Whether it's a date window, whether it's, the movement not being great, there's always a sacrifice. Like, oh, we'll make it smaller for them. We'll keep the design the same, which is great because that's kind of what we want. We like that, but we want it smaller. But they'll make it a quartz, or it will be not COSC certified, or it'll be, it won't have the date window on it, or it don't. There's always a sacrifice in it,
yeah,
and that stresses me out a little bit. Um, and then I I did rant about this the other day as well. I'm very, very much over the Tiffany blue.
yeah,
I'm so like I'm done. I'm so done with this Tiffany blue colorway
yeah,
now, and it just still keeps popping up. I'm like, can we pick another color, please?
yeah.
Like
And it's been a long time too. It's not like
years.
it's been like a year. It's been years. So
Yep.
it's like come on, man. Like there's
What's the
literally
next one?
you can spend $8, and I'm pretty sure they're $8 now. I haven't bought them in a long time, but buy like the 128 crayon box and like
Pick one.
take out Tiffany blue and blindly pick a color and roll with that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
increase your mathematical probability of having a different color than someone else.
for
No, I know
sure.
what you mean. I know what you mean. It's yeah, my thing is like the sacrifice now for everyone that watches the channel knows first sacrifice should always be the date window because every no date watch is the best watch. I know what day it is every single day, but I've noticed like yeah, you talk about like sometimes they'll like make the crown so small you can't really operate it, or maybe I got too big of fingers. I don't know, but like my Seiko 5, the vintage one, that's the first thing I noticed. I'm like, man, this is a small crown. Like I'm trying to do everything with it. I'm like, I could barely grab this thing. But yeah, they do sacrifice. I hadn't really given that much thought. Yeah.
Most people that obviously wear larger watches don't notice or don't realize it, but yeah, when they downsize pieces, stuff gets missed out. Stuff gets go in the bin.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and because I know people that are date loyalist. Like if the date's not there, they're out. I'm the opposite. Like I look at every watch, I'm like, man, that watch would be so beautiful. It just didn't have a date. My friends all think I'm weird, but that's just me. But so Lucy, it's been wonderful having you on. Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything you'd like our audience to know? And like always, I'll include all the stuff in the show notes if there's anything in particular.
make sure that if you do enjoy my horological ramblings, which tend to happen often, check me out on YouTube. Check me out on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me. Feed the algorithm gremlins, as I like to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, like hit me up on there. In terms of advice, what would I say? Like, don't compare yourself to others. If you like it, just wear it.
Yep.
I see, I get a lot of people that are saying I couldn't possibly wear that, or it's too big for me, it's too small for me. I'm like, if you like it, wear it. Just that's it. Just if you like
Yeah.
it, that's all that matters. So having that confidence in yourself and your style it was probably one of the biggest things that I learned um when getting into watches. So
Yeah.
yeah, so make sure you follow me as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put all the links in the show notes. I couldn't have said any better myself, Lucy. Thank you for being on. It was a wonderful,
Thank
wonderful
you.
conversation. And like all guests, you're open invitation to return anytime you want to.
That would be great. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much
Yep.
for having me.
Thank you. And have a great evening, everyone. And remember, at watchrolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.